The hallway echoed with laughter that wasn't kind, the sharp, cutting kind of laughter that digs into the skin more cruelly than words ever could. And at the center of it all stood Alina, the quiet girl who had spent years blending into the background, shoulders slouched, eyes downcast, books pressed tightly against her chest like a shield she never wanted to use but always needed. She had been mocked before, whispered insults about her clothes, her silence, the way she never seemed to fit in. But this time it was different. This time the group of bullies had cornered her against the cold lockers, their sneering faces circling closer, one hand snatching at her bag, another tugging at her shirt until she heard the sound of fabric tearing. A sound so humiliating it felt louder than thunder, and in that moment something inside her snapped, not with fear but with a fire she had been hiding for too long. She remembered her late father's voice echoing in her head. Strength is not about hurting others, Alina. It's about knowing when to stand tall. And with trembling hands she dropped her books, raised her eyes for the first time in months, and the bullies froze because the shy girl they thought they could break was no longer the same. She was different, fierce, unshakable. One of them shoved her, laughing. But before he knew what was happening, her body moved on instinct, the years of judo practice she had secretly endured flowing through her like lightning. Her hands gripped his arm, her hip twisted, and in one flawless motion he was flying down the hallway, crashing against the lockers with a thunderous bang that silenced every laugh, every whisper, every cruel word, and the others stumbled back in shock as she turned, eyes blazing not with anger but with strength, and when the second bully lunged, thinking he could overpower her, she spun, pivoted, and sent him sprawling across the floor like a ragdoll tossed by a storm. The hallway was now filled not with laughter but with gasps of disbelief. The shy girl, the invisible girl, had just ripped apart years of silence with one bold act of defiance, and though her shirt was torn, her pride, her courage, her soul stood taller than ever before, a symbol of resilience in the face of cruelty. And as she picked up her books, her voice rang steady and strong for the first time in front of everyone. Never mistake kindness for weakness. Leaving the bullies scrambling in shame as the crowd parted for her to walk through, not as a victim, but as a warrior reborn. Chapter 2: The Rise of a Warrior. The story of that hallway fight spread like wildfire, whispers turning into stories, stories turning into legend. And Alina found herself the center of a new kind of attention, no longer mocked but feared, respected, and secretly admired by those who once ignored her existence. Yet even as people cheered her courage, deep inside she struggled with the storm of emotions that night replayed in her head. The tear of her shirt, the humiliation, the rush of adrenaline, the crash of bodies against lockers, and above all the realization that she had finally claimed her voice in a world that tried to silence it. And she knew this was only the beginning. The bullies, nursing their bruised pride, plotted revenge, whispering in corners, glaring from a distance. But every time they thought of attacking again, they remembered the look in her eyes, the unshakable fire that had burned brighter than their cruelty, and hesitation crept into their hearts. For the first time they felt fear instead of power, and this fear began to eat away at the empire of their dominance. While Alina began to grow stronger each day, not just in judo practice but in her confidence, standing taller in class, speaking up when others fell silent, helping those who were still being pushed down by the shadows of bullying. And soon she wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for everyone who had ever been broken, teaching them that strength lived in silence too, waiting for the right moment to roar. One afternoon, when the bullies tried to corner another boy smaller than them, Alina stepped between, her torn shirt from that fateful day now stitched and worn like a badge of honor. Her eyes locked with theirs as she said, "Not again, not while I'm here." And with just those words the balance of power shifted. The hallway no longer belonged to cruelty, it belonged to courage, and though the bullies tried to step forward, one glance at her stance made them falter, their grip on control slipping forever. From that day forward, Alina was no longer just the shy girl, she was a symbol of hope, a protector, a warrior whose strength inspired others to rise, to push back, to fight for dignity. And as her story spread beyond the walls of the school, it carried a message that echoed through countless hearts. No matter how broken, no matter how shy, the fire within cannot be extinguished when you choose to rise. And to every viewer watching her journey unfold, let this be your reminder. Your voice matters, your strength is real, and when the world tries to push you down, rise higher, fight harder, and stand unshakable, because your story could be the one that changes everything. And if you felt the power of Alina's courage ignite something inside you, then join this family. Hit that subscribe button and be part of a community that believes in turning pain into power, silence into strength, and brokenness into unbreakable will. Because this is not the end, it's only the beginning.